Good evening. I'm Mr. Harris. 23 years ago, I started working as director of a small group home for children. I'm retired now, but some faces, they never leave you. Today I want to tell you about Jason. They found him dead 3 years ago. Overdose. He was an adult by then, 28 years old. But I still see that skinny teenager who came to us at 16. Here's what kills me the most. In his pocket, they found a piece of paper. Crumpled, worn. It said, "Mr. Harris taught me that words can save." And I didn't even know he wrote. Jason showed up on a cold November morning. The social worker brought him at 6:30. I had just made coffee. Rain was tapping on the windows. The boy got out of the car slowly. Like every step was hard for him. On his left arm, he had a tattoo. Homemade. Pencil and needle. Just the word free. Letters uneven, blurry. I thought then, another tough case. How wrong I was. Jason barely spoke the first 2 weeks. Sat in the corner of the dining room. Ate little. Stared out the window. Other kids tried to talk to him. He nodded. Smiled politely. But his eyes stayed empty. At night, I often heard him walking the hallways. Quiet, careful, like he was looking for something. Or hiding from something. One morning, I went into his room. He was sleeping. There was a notebook on the desk. Open. I didn't want to pry, but I saw one line. Silence is louder than screaming. I didn't understand what it meant then, but I understand now. Jason didn't scream. He wrote. He had no voice for pain. Only words on paper. And I almost missed them. That evening I knocked on his door. Jason opened it. Surprised. He didn't get visitors often. "Can I come in?" I asked. He nodded. Hid the notebook under his pillow. Thought I didn't notice. "How are things, son?" "Fine, Mr. Harris." Voice quiet. Hoarse. Like he'd been screaming all night, though I knew he never screamed. "What are you up to?" "Nothing much." Pause. Long, awkward pause. "Jason, if you need to talk." "Everything's okay." He stared at the floor, hands shaking a little. I thought then drugs. Withdrawal. A lot of kids had that. But with Jason it was different. The next day, I found the first piece of paper. It was in the laundry room, folded inside his jeans pocket. A small piece of notebook paper. Torn edges. Blue ink. I should have given it back. That would have been proper, but something made me unfold it. The walls here breathe with other people's pain. I listen to their whispers in the dark. Tomorrow I will pretend I'm okay again. But tonight, I let my broken pieces talk. I stood there holding that paper for 10 minutes. Maybe longer. This kid, this quiet, damaged kid, he was a poet. I didn't know what to do with that information. In 20 years of working with troubled teens, I'd seen everything. Drug addicts, kids who'd been beaten, abandoned, abused. But I'd never found poetry in someone's pocket. The next week I started paying attention, really watching Jason. How he moved through the house. How he sat during group therapy. How his eyes would go distant during dinner conversations. And I started finding more papers. One under his mattress when I was doing room checks. Freedom is a word I tattooed on my skin because I couldn't find it anywhere else. Another in the common room, fallen behind the couch. They ask me where I hurt. I point to places that don't have names. Each poem hit me harder than the last. Jason was telling his story, but not to us. To empty pages. To scraps of paper he thought no one would find. I kept them all. I know I shouldn't have. But something told me these words mattered. That someday, somehow, they would matter. 3 weeks after he arrived, Jason started talking to Maria. She was 15, had been with us for 6 months. Quiet like him, but in a different way. Her silence came from shyness. His came from somewhere much deeper. I watched them in the garden one afternoon. Jason was pulling weeds. Maria was watering tomatoes. Neither of them speaking. But there was something peaceful about it, like 2 wounded animals who understood each other without words. That night, I found another poem. This one different. Maybe healing looks like finding someone who doesn't need you to explain your scars. I realized Jason was changing. Slowly, carefully, but changing. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday. I remember because it was raining again. Same kind of rain as the day he arrived. But this time Jason wasn't hiding from it. He knocked on my office door. First time he'd ever initiated contact. "Mr. Harris? Can I talk to you?" His voice was still quiet, but there was something new in it. Not confidence exactly, but not complete defeat either. "Of course, son. Come in." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. The same chair where dozens of kids had sat over the years. Crying, angry, confused. Jason sat down, fidgeted with his hands. The free tattoo caught the light. "I know you found them," he said finally. My heart stopped. "Found what?" "My poems. I know you have them." I could have lied. Should have lied. But those words on those papers, they deserved honesty. "Yes," I said. "I did." He nodded, like he'd been expecting it. "Are you angry at me for reading them?" Jason looked up then. For the first time since he'd arrived, he looked directly at me. His eyes weren't empty anymore. They were sad, but they were alive. "No," he said. I think I wanted someone to find them." That conversation changed everything. Not overnight. Nothing ever changes overnight with kids like Jason. But something shifted. Like a door that had been locked for years finally creaked open just a little. I started leaving books on my desk. Poetry books. Maya Angelou. Langston Hughes. Robert Frost. I never said they were for him. But they would disappear for a few days. Then reappear, sometimes with tiny pencil marks in the margins. One morning I found a note on my desk. "Thank you for the books." I never knew other people felt this way too. We began meeting every Thursday. Not formal therapy sessions. Just talking. About books. About words. About how sometimes the only way to survive something is to write it down. Jason told me about his mother. How she would disappear for weeks. Come back high. Disappear again. How he learned to take care of himself when he was 8 years old. "I started writing then," he said. "On napkins. On the backs of unpaid bills. Anywhere I could find space." He told me about foster homes. 5 of them before he turned 16. Good families who tried. But Jason had learned not to trust good things. They always went away. "That's why I got the tattoo," he said, touching his arm. "Free. Because even if everything else was taken from me, words couldn't be. They were mine." I understood then. The poetry wasn't just expression for Jason. It was survival. We started a writing group. Just Jason and Maria at first. Then Tommy joined. He was 14, had been with us for a month. Then Sarah. She was 13 and had never spoken about what happened to her before. Every Thursday evening we sat in the common room. I would bring different prompts. Write about a color that makes you feel safe. Describe a sound that reminds you of home. If you could tell your younger self one thing. Jason became the leader without anyone appointing him. He would read his poems first. His honesty gave others permission to be honest too. I watched him change during those months. Not completely. Healing isn't that simple. But he started smiling sometimes. Real smiles, not the polite ones from his first weeks. He helped in the garden with Maria. Started eating more at dinner. Stopped walking the hallways at night. One Thursday, he brought a new poem. Different from the others. Hopeful in a way that surprised me. I used to think healing meant forgetting. Now I think it means remembering without drowning. The scars are still here, but they don't define the story. Today I wrote a different ending. After group that night, Jason stayed behind. "Mr. Harris," he said, "I've been thinking about college." College. This kid who barely spoke when he arrived was thinking about college. "Tell me more about that," I said. "I want to study writing. Maybe social work. I want to help kids like..." He paused. "Like us." I felt something break open in my chest. Good break, not bad break. "I think that's a wonderful idea, son. Jason turned 18 that spring. In most states, that means aging out of the system, out of group homes, out of support, into the world alone. But Jason wasn't alone anymore. He had words. He had people who believed in him. He had Maria, who was like a sister to him now. And he had a future he could imagine. The day he left, he gave me a folded paper. "Don't read it until I'm gone," he said. I hugged him. This kid who had been so afraid of human touch when he arrived. He hugged me back. "You saved me, Mr. Harris," he whispered. "No, son," I said. "You saved yourself." I just listened. I waited until his car disappeared down the road. Then I opened the paper. "Mr. Harris, words saved me, but they didn't cure me. I know the darkness will come back sometimes. It always does. But now I know I'm not alone in it. Thank you for teaching me that pain shared is pain cut in half, and joy shared is joy doubled. I will carry your voice with me always. Love, Jason. P.S. I left something for you in the garden." I ran outside. Behind the tomato plants Maria and Jason had tended together, I found a small wooden box. Inside were copies of every poem he'd written during his time with us. Dozens of them, carefully rewritten in his neat handwriting. On the inside of the lid, he'd carved, "For Mr. Harris." These words were born in darkness but grew toward light. Thank you for being the light. Jason did go to college. Community college first, then transferred to State University. He studied creative writing and psychology. He called me every few months, sometimes excited about a good grade, sometimes struggling with depression, but always fighting. He graduated with honors, got a job at a youth center in Portland, started his own writing program for at-risk teens. "I'm using everything you taught me," he told me during one call. "Some of these kids, they're just like I was. Scared, angry, but they have words inside them. I can see it." For 8 years, Jason was okay. Not perfect. He still battled demons. Had bad days. But he was building something. A life. A purpose. Then his mother died. Overdose. Even though she'd abandoned him, even though she'd hurt him, it broke something inside him that had finally healed. He called me that night, 3 in the morning, crying for the first time since I'd known him. "I thought I was stronger," he sobbed. "I thought I was past all this." "Grief isn't about being strong, son," I told him. "It's about being human." We talked for 2 hours. I thought he was better when we hung up. I thought the words had worked again. But sometimes words aren't enough. The call came on a Tuesday. Same kind of rain as the day he'd arrived. As the day he'd first talked to me. Maria called me. She'd stayed in touch with Jason over the years. They'd remained close friends. "Mr. Harris," she said, and I could hear her crying. "Jason's gone. They found him in his apartment. He'd been clean for years. But grief has its own kind of poison." At the funeral, I met dozens of kids whose lives he'd touched. Teenagers who looked just like he had at 16. Lost, angry, but learning to find their voices. One boy, maybe 15, came up to me. "Are you Mr. Harris?" he asked. I nodded. "Jason talked about you all the time. He said you taught him that words could save people." He taught me the same thing. The boy handed me a folded paper. He was working on this the day before he died. "I thought you should have it." I unfolded it with shaking hands. The boy who tattooed "free" on his skin learned that freedom isn't escape. It's the courage to stay, to fight, to believe. Some days I lose that courage, but the words remain. And maybe that's enough. Maybe leaving words behind is its own kind of forever. I still have that poem. I have all his poems. Sometimes I read them to the kids who come after. Kids like Jason. Kids who think they're broken beyond repair. I tell them about the boy who hid his pain in poetry, who found his voice in the darkest places, who taught me that healing isn't about forgetting the hurt. It's about transforming it into something that can help others heal. Jason was right, you know. Words can save people. Not always completely. Not always forever. but they can save parts of us, the parts that matter most. And sometimes, when we're very lucky, those saved parts go on to save others. That's Jason's real legacy. Not the pain that took him, but the light he left behind. The words he gave to kids who needed them. The voice he found for those who had no voice. Thank you for listening to his story. There are more stories to tell. More children who left marks on this old heart. Until next time, remember, we all have words inside us. Dark ones and light ones. The choice is which ones we choose to share with the world. Good night.